I got posed a prompt from a friend of mine that works for an NBA team. And I don't know if you also got this prompt because you also know this person.
Okay.
But the question was exactly this. Let's say Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper go picks 1 and 2. And we'll talk about that in a second, like whether or not we think everybody would take Dylan Harper at number 2. I think they would, but we'll at least do the exercise really quickly.
Okay.
What would each lottery team's best decision be if they land at number 3? Is it VJ, Ace, another player, or potentially to trade, right? And then like, can we find a team that would like to trade up for one of these players, basically, right?
Okay.
So let's start with the first part of that question. Do you think there is a team out there that would not take Dylan Harper at number 2?
Utah would, Washington would, Charlotte would.
I think Charlotte would.
New Orleans,
I'll say that. Yes.
Brooklyn absolutely would. So the two that jump out to me as I look through it, Philly, I think still would, but I guess you could wonder like if VJ or Ace would make more sense when you have Maxey. I think I still would. Philly, Toronto, just because like we've had this conversation. Portland, maybe. Like
I think everybody would. I will say that.
I think so too. I'm just trying to identify teams that maybe have.
The thing that you could maybe sell me on is like, I think Philly would potentially explore the market
to trade
as a trade at number 2. The thing that I would do if I was them personally would not be to explore the market on Dylan Harper. It would be to explore the market on Jared McCain. If I was them, because I bet they would get real value for Jared McCain. And Jared McCain was great this season, and I don't mean to like disparage him, but there are still questions about fit with, Tyrese, Maxey, and McCain long term. And Harper is big enough to play with Maxey long term as your ideal player. So that would be kind of my idea. I think that they would take Harper, but I think that they would explore the market on McCain in all likelihood.
Yeah, I don't think so. I have him. I'm not even as high on Dylan Harper as others are, I found, but I still have him solidly as my number 2.
Is there any chance that Chicago would do something silly like extend, Kobe White and re-sign Josh Giddey in free agency and decide we have our 2 ball handlers. We're not taking Dylan Harper. We're taking Ace Bailey to pair with Modest.
I mean, of course, Chicago might do that because they're Chicago. So that was another team. Because we've talked about this with all the ball handlers. Be interesting, right? Like if you were fully going to commit to Giddey and you're going to fully commit to Kobe White with real substantial money, I think I would still probably just draft Harper and figure it out. Yeah. But I suppose.
Yeah, I would still just draft Dylan, to be clear, but like that is one option. I mean, Portland with, Scoot and with all their guys, Jaden, like I would be interested to see what they would do. Toronto, I think that they just take Dylan at the end of the day. They just take talented dudes and try and figure it out. Okay. So that's part 1 of this prompt done, basically. Part 2 here is, what do we think each of these teams would do at number 3? So I'm just going to run through the list here.
Yep.
And we're going to talk through it and go for it. So we're assuming here that both Cooper and Dylan are off the board. Let's say the Utah Jazz get number 3. The Utah Jazz are in an interesting position where they just need good players, basically. I am not totally sure what they would do. I will say that.
So right now I have VJ higher on my board than Ace. Things can change.
I do as well, to be clear. Personally, I VJ ahead.
Post the season's over, I go back and rewatch film and find stuff that I may have missed, and the board can change because of that. Utah is a team that, as I look through the names, like I'm instantly like, would they rather go with Ace? Like, is this an Ace team? Like, would this make sense in terms of floor spacer, big wing? Maybe. I don't know that I feel strongly enough about it to go, hey, I'm going to take the player that's one spot lower on my board over the player I have higher. I don't know that I found my argument for that. Do you have one that makes you say you should go with the player same tier, but I have a spot lower?
For them, no. Yeah. I don't think they have the guy that like is the building block, right? So here's my thing with all of these teams that we're going to talk through. There are probably a few where I'm like, yeah, they should just take the guy that fits their roster best. But personally, if I'm any of these teams, if there's a team that wants to jump up and get one of these players, either VJ or Ace, and is willing to give up like real future draft capital to do so, I'm probably in favor of that. Utah is in a funky spot where like they really just need elite talent on some level. Like they can't keep kicking the can down the road. They need to just go find dudes. Man, it's hard because...
Let me ask you this, Sam. I still tend to lean towards Ace has some like big time two-way wing potential ceiling stuff where, like, I guess my simplified question is, who has a higher ceiling? Ace with this two-way wing. Like, I just feel like that's gone down so much because we haven't seen the shot creation with the handle. Everything is so contested. But with VJ, it's like, what is the ceiling there if he doesn't handle the ball? Like, I believe in the jumper. I believe in the defense. But is VJ ever a top 3 option on your team offensively?
It depends on if he can grow in any way as a ball handler.
Is Ace ever a top 2 option on a team? Like, does he have that potential?
It depends on if he can grow in any way as a ball handler going toward the rim, right? Ace has some step back stuff, has some really interesting ability to get to his shot from the mid range and from 3, but like can't get to the rim and is woefully inefficient because of it. VJ like isn't a great creator because he doesn't have a great left hand and is still working through a number of different issues. Like, I don't know if I see either of these guys as like primary creators. So I think that my answer is still, I might try to trade down if I was Utah. And we'll talk about a team here in a minute where I could like see them trying to explore like moving up to get VJ. But I think I might try to accumulate assets if I'm them, even though they need to go get dudes. If you made me pick one for them,
this is a team where I'm.
This is one where I'm considering Ace.
Yeah,
I am.
That's where I'm at as well. Like my natural instinct was maybe I would be in the camp that Ace probably still has more quote unquote upside ceiling, whatever. Now there's always a caveat of what is the percentage outcome of that ceiling. And if I'm Utah, I might be hunting that a little bit more, especially like they have a bunch of guards. I don't love any of their guards. I don't even know how many of their guards are going to be starters, but like,
I mean, like, is there any chance that this team looks at like Trey Johnson, Jeremiah Fears, like Khan, any of these guys?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's what, there's just, for me, I have a pretty solid tier break after these two, and I kind of told you this whenever you brought it up in the text I was like, I think this is going to turn into an Ace versus VJ conversation. And we were very aware of that. I would need a really strong reason to go to Trey, Khan, Jeremiah, et cetera, the guys in my next tier, as opposed to one of these two dudes.
I think I had Utah quite highly in this team needs to win the lottery rankings that we did. I don't know if I had them at 1, but like I might have had them at 1. They might be the team that most needs to like finish in the top 2 of the lottery for me for this year to be like a successful season.
Sure.
For them. Okay. Next up, we've got the Washington Wizards. I think I just take VJ if I'm them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, like exploring trading down, like I'm for it, but I think that I just take VJ if I'm them, because I really like the idea of like having a good defensive player next to Bub Carrington, next to Bilal Coulibaly. You're trying to build this like really strong defensive infrastructure with Alex Sarr and a lot of these guys that you've already drafted that are high-end defenders, Keyshawn George as well, certainly. I just continue to go down that road and I take VJ here.
So this is another one where I think I would consider Ace just because of the ceiling thing. After our mock, I had some Wizards fans reach out, and it did make me reflect a little bit. Like, hey, with where this team is at, we should be going more ceiling. We should be going, for something a little bit more. And I like the interaction and I like the reflection. I like when people force me to do so, and so. I wonder then if maybe Ace would be the one here as well. Like get that wing shot maker with potential shot creation, and hope you have the defensive infrastructure of Coulibaly, Sarr. We mentioned Keyshawn George, who's been interesting defensively. And the scary thing with Ace for this team is it goes completely against what you talked about in the mock, where you would put a pretty heavy burden on him offensively right away. And that
Correct.
Could be scary, right? So for Ace, this might not be the best, but for the Wizards taking a chance on it, I would understand if they went for what I right now would still consider kind of the higher ceiling player in Ace Bailey.
I get it. I think I'm just like a little bit lower on Ace's ceiling than what some people are, and that's okay.
I agree, and I've come way down on it from where I was at a certain point. I'm excited to get to the end of the season, so then I can circle. Like obviously, we watch these guys all year, but really circle back and like find a hard stance on what I think that ceiling may be for Ace.
Okay, the Charlotte Hornets, like we're just like firmly on VJ for them. Like go get like a real defender to put next to LaMelo and Brandon Miller. Like that's the very obvious one.
Yes, this. Yeah, I'm pretty good with that for sure.
Yeah, just 100%. Like you take VJ, you take the defensive player. He helps you grow and build your defensive infrastructure. I will say, like, I'm not on the VJ is going to be like an all defense guy boat. I actually thought he was not very good defensively in their first round game, particularly at the NCAA tournament. But I do think he is like a very positive, strong defender. And I also love the idea of him playing in transition with like LaMelo and Miles Bridges and all of those guys. Like, I think that's actually how he ends up becoming a little bit more capable of growing into what he can be offensively, is by playing in a situation like that.
I agree.
So definitely LaMelo for me with them, and definitely VJ for them. And if I was them, they are a team that I would consider moving up as long as the price was not wild. In order to get VJ. I think that is just such a perfect fit for what they need that I would like really, really want him on my roster.
Sure.
New Orleans at 4.
I think I'm leaning like keeping this a VJ. I don't find myself considering Ace as much as some of the other ones. I don't think it's a real quick answer the way Charlotte is. But I think with New Orleans, especially with Trey Murphy there, I think VJ is my answer on this one.
VJ is my answer here as well. They have a number of like these big wings already, obviously, and Zion and Trey and, Herb Jones is still there, obviously, even though he's been hurt. You do have the guards in DeJounte and CJ, obviously. But DeJounte has the torn Achilles. We don't know how he's going to pull up from that. And then CJ is a free agent after next year. I actually love the idea of doing what I've been saying for a while now, long term, and playing Zion as your point, and then having like VJ as your 2 guard, almost off of Zion, that can guard at the point of attack, like your opposing team's best player, or opposing teams like best perimeter player, point guard, whatever you want it to be. And then just weaponize Zion on the ball all the time. Like that to me is a home run for them.
Yep. I agree.
Okay. Philadelphia. We've talked a little bit about Philly here. I think if they don't get one or two, that's where we really start to look into moving this thing.
Trade it. Yeah.
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 Having said that, this is an ace team for me.
Yeah. You like the idea of him being able to grow behind
Paul George,
what they are theoretically, and also the upside. Again, I'm not saying the upside that Ace Bailey was once talked about, but if those guys stay unhealthy or injured or whatever, then you have the Ace Bailey potential coming in from behind. So I think this is where he got mocked in our most recent, right? Was he ended up with Philly? Is that right?
It is, because we had Philly at 4 and we had Charlotte at 3. So it's just like the easiest place to put them, to be honest with you. If they're not able to trade out, I do think Ace makes sense. They need a little bit more size, more than they need like another smaller-ish guard in VJ, which, they already have Quentin Grimes, Jared McCain, Tyrese Maxey, obviously. They have like that core there. I think they are an Ace team more than a Murray Boyles or a Kasparis or a Fears or whoever, right? I think they would probably try to move it though. In terms of like trying to find the team, I mean, maybe Brooklyn would move up, maybe Charlotte would move up, depending on who's available. Maybe. And like, what would a trade look like there as well? Like, if you're Brooklyn, do you think they move Cam Johnson for like the 4th overall pick or something? I mean, probably, right?
They would have to love Ace though, right? For that. Well, I guess you're still just only stepping back. So you're saying like Cam and 6 or 7 for 4.
Cam and 6 and 7.
6 or like wherever.
Oh no, I was just saying kind of straight up.
Straight
to be
up.
Honest with you. Yeah.
I don't know that I'm that confident in these guys. Like
like Cam Johnson solves a lot of problems for Philly, and you'd have to find the way to make the money work. Like, I'm actually trying to figure out if they can make that work off the top of my head. Kind of thinking through this, like they have a player option, I think, on Oubre. They have the Drummond player option. And then they have like McCain's money. And I think that Cam is at like 25-ish, something like that, 23-ish maybe next year. This actually would be hard.
Just to make the money work.
This would be very hard to make the money work, actually. So, I don't know if this does work, honestly.
And I mean, to your point, I mean, Cam Johnson for that high of a pick, it's just like, I would want to feel, I think in that scenario, then if I'm Brooklyn, I'm taking Ace. And like, I just feel like, I feel really good about what Ace is going to be, I guess.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like another player like that. You know what I mean? Sure. But it probably has to be a relatively cheaper player too. Like it can't be it can't be somebody making 20 probably. Like it probably has to be somebody
Simons
that's a little bit lower.
Too much if like Portland wanted to fell in love with one of them.
Yeah, and I'm not doing that for Simons either. Like, I don't think Portland moves Denny for those guys, for any of these guys.
Not the way he's playing right now. Not on that. Conference.
Yeah. Like, is there any way the Timberwolves would consider like Naz Reid? Like if Naz Reid would opt in, but I don't think Naz is going to opt in, so that doesn't work. I don't think the Lakers do Reeves for these guys. Because they're a younger, interesting player, maybe. Like it has to be somebody that's a little bit bigger, maybe. I'm like really running through my brain a little bit. I don't know. I don't know that they've like, would they consider, do you think Houston would want to move up for one of these guys and would consider like Jabari Smith in their pick for number 3 just to like reset the contract timeline?
So Jabari plus late teens
Yeah, it'd work out as like Jabari and Thomas Sorber for Ace Bailey or something like that.
I mean, it'd be kind of funny, right? Based on some of the comps around Ace Bailey. I don't know. I don't. I mean, I think what's interesting there, like you brought up, was the changing the money, right? Like, because now you don't have to worry about paying Jabari. You get Ace on the rookie contract. So I don't know. That's an interesting one, I guess.
Would the Pistons move Asar for number 4? Probably not.
Yeah. Probably not. I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting again, but like, I think as we talk through this stuff, I must just be a little bit lower on, like, I like these guys and they are in this tier, but I think maybe I'm too low on this draft all of a sudden at the top, because I wouldn't feel great about that if I'm Detroit, like swapping out Asar for Ace. Maybe I'm crazy though.
I think Ace has like a little bit more ceiling if the offense like really comes to fruition, sure. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like if you're the Sixers, like the idea is, oh, we're getting like this dynamic defensive player to put in between all of like Maxey, George, and these guys. I think that like that's the kind of player it would have to be for them to move it. Like, I'm not saying Asar specifically. I'm saying like a cheap, probably rookie scale player for the number 4 overall pick that could come in and be like ready sooner than Ace Bailey or VJ Edgecombe for Philly.
Yeah.
I think for Philly though, I still might just take Ace.
Yeah.
And just like see what happens.
Sure.
Okay. Number 5 or number 6 here is Brooklyn. Brooklyn, I think they probably take Ace.
I mean, that was another
swing.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like that, my natural instinct when I read them was Ace. So
yeah, take the swing, take the upside bet. You have 3 other first round picks this year to where you can go get like really good, high end players. I think I'm just like taking Ace and seeing where it goes if I'm Brooklyn. Number 7, Toronto. I mean, I think this is VJ personally.
My natural thought was VJ as well, because like how many guys can you try to prioritize offensively? I think he makes more sense, just like the shooting and the defense. I mean, it'd be fascinating if they went ahead and added him to it, though.
So you've VJ, Quickly, Barrett, Barnes,
BI,
Ingram. Yeah. Like that feels more workable to me than Ace for sure. Like I think it's definitely, I think it's definitely they take VJ over Ace, given that they now have Ingram and Barnes.
Yeah. I marked them as a VJ team.
Yeah. I think they're probably a VJ team. Miami.
I instinctually thought VJ here as well.
I think VJ here as well. I think VJ just like kind of fits their mentality a little bit better.
Yeah.
Just the defensive like energy and intensity consistently being there. The potential to like let him grow as an athlete. Like they're a really good developmental organization. Yeah, I think that's probably right. I think they probably take VJ over Ace. And I think that they would keep the pick if you made me bet. Let's get to a quick little note from Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money action. There are over 10 million members. Like I said a second ago, they invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks always puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. We are big fans of Prize Picks here. We absolutely love the app and what they're doing for the daily fantasy sports scene. Download the app today and use code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use that code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. San Antonio, number 9. That's interesting. I haven't thought much about San Antonio in this regard. Just because, like, they can't possibly move up again, can they? It can't happen again, right?
I mean, it can. So my natural
look, the better positional fit is Ace, but like the organizational fit is like VJ. It's weird.
So that's where I was. My initial thought was VJ, but then the more I thought about it, the more I became intrigued with Ace, because I think the thing is always, and he showed some defensive, like that's where I think he, like, the one thing he really has done defensively is be disruptive, right? Like block shots and stuff like that. I mean, it kind of fits with what, going all the way back to what you and Tim talked about with the De'Aaron Fox, is you can get real aggressive defensively with Victor behind you. And we talk all the time about putting floor spacing around Wembanyama and Fox. Ace still does that. Like, I think he's going to knock down shots, even if it only ends up being catch and shoot stuff, right? Even if none of the off the dribble stuff comes around. I think I'm thinking a little bit more Ace here than what I thought initially.
I think it would be Ace over VJ, if only because they already have like Fox and Castle and Vassell, right?
Yep.
And they could use like more front court scoring for sure.
Yeah.
Are they another team though that looks to trade this for a player that can like really jumpstart them next season when Wemby is back? You have De'Aaron Fox in place now. You have a year older of Castle. You like they could like really set themselves up to be in a very positive position if they got the number 3 overall pick, like for next season.
You have me fascinated now, because like I feel like I'm undervaluing the number 3 pick through this process. And so now I'm going to spend the rest of the evening trying to wait. Like, I think we all know what the value of the number 1 pick is, right? And even number 2, I think would take quite the haul. Now this exercise has made me really wonder and question what would number 3 go for? You know, how would you value these guys? What could these guys return? Because you do always have to factor in the rookie scale contract about with this, especially. So I'm really interested to see what would San Antonio be able to get if they wanted to trade number 3? It's interesting.
Could you do like Vassell, Barnes, and number 3 for Lowry Markkanen?
Oh, so yeah. So then packaging it is really interesting. I don't think Utah has held out for that return.
What do you mean?
Like, Utah has held on to Lowry for so long. I think that, like, to me, that's not a Godfather offer for Lowry.
You're getting like Devin Vassell, who can like kind of help your like really good player. And you're getting number 3 that you can add to your number 1 or number 2 or number 4 or number 5 pick.
Sure.
And like the Lowry deal, like this year.
That's true. That's true.
And look, like they've been like kind of a mess. Like, let's be clear about that. Like, and I think that's reduced Lowry's value.
Sure.
But it hasn't been like the best Lowry year.
No, I was going to mention that earlier whenever we were talking about Utah, it hasn't been a great year. It's just, it would be interesting. Like, you hold out on Lowry. Don't think Utah's got a better offer than Ace Bailey and Devin Vassell for Lowry over the last 18 to 24 months?
No.
Interesting. Okay.
I think I would say no to that. Yeah. Like, I think that Vassell has been like quite good.
No, I think what maybe this is making me realize is when we talk about the value of first round picks, right? Because they've probably been offered more first round picks but those picks were probably going to end up in the, like, you're guaranteeing what pick you're getting here with this one, right? You're getting a top
Correct.
3. And so that's where the value really comes into play that I maybe not be emphasizing enough.
Yeah. And again, like, I think Vassell at 27, based off of the way he's played, like over the totality of the season, is probably a slight overpay in all honesty. But I will say over his last 14 games, basically since the month of March started, he's at 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 3.5 assists, shooting 49, 41, 87. So like he's starting to get back a little bit. So I don't know. That's a really interesting deal to me.
Lowry in San Antonio would be really interesting.
That'd be
too,
amazing,
right?
I think.
Because
you
he's
pair
the
him
third
with
option.
Wemby.
Yeah, and he's the third option, which he's going to be maybe the best third option in the NBA. I'd be hard pressed to find a better, I would guess. So
yeah, and you'd be 5 out because you have all of those guys, which means you'd really be able to weaponize what makes Lowry awesome, which is like the cutting, the attacking closeouts, like all that stuff. I think he would be fucking awesome next to Fox and Wemby in San Antonio. Like, I think he'd be unbelievable between those two.
For sure. Yeah.
I don't know. So like, here's the other question too, is like someone just said, I'd rather give Naz Reid 30 million than Lowry 50. And like, you don't have to give up the pick value as well. So you keep number 3 in this circumstance if you give Naz Reid 30. But I think Lowry in that offense is actually like a pretty substantial upgrade on Naz. I will say that.
The contract with Lowry is a good point. I wasn't taking that into account enough in terms of the trade value. Him signing that deal and now being a $45 to $50 million player per year definitely lowers what they would return in a trade. That's a very fair point. Very good point.
And honestly, like a big piece of this for me too is like, I'm not like massive on Vassell right now. I know he's been good like in the month of March here, but I did not like what I saw earlier this year from him. And I hope that he's getting better and like this is real growth and not just like March basketball. But like, I'm kind of looking at this as, okay, we're also potentially getting, some value for Vassell here when I don't know if we would do that on the market right now.
Sure.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting choice to me, at least. I think I would just rather do Naz because I wouldn't want to give up all of the value, but I don't know if Naz is going to like actually be available on the market for them necessarily either. Like he might just go back to Minnesota. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one though. San Antonio is a team that could like really do damage in the star trade market if they decided we're willing to move this pick to go get a third star between Fox and Wemby.
Yeah.
And Castle as well now. Portland. I think Portland will take one of these guys. I think that I think it's Ace. I think they take Ace, to be honest with you.
My initial answer was Ace as well.
Yeah.
I think a little bit depends on what they do with Simons. If they're definitely planning on moving Simons, I think some minutes open up for VJ. Even if it's the third guy with Scoot and Shaden, I think he can make sense there because Shaden does a lot on the ball. So even if you're playing him and VJ together, Shaden can take the on-ball reps, especially with how much Denny does on the ball. Ace with Denny and Tumani would be really interesting though as well. I kind of like the idea of either one of them in Portland, but this is probably because I like the young foundation that Portland has right now, which we swooned over a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, we've done that enough. I think that I'm just like trying to construct lineups as much as anything. You probably want Denny and Kamara at the 3 and the 4. And they're both better than Ace right now.
100%.
So like, if you trade Simons, is it actually easier to get VJ on the court?
It is. I agree. Yeah. But if you move Jeremy Grant, then it's just like, to me, it's the same thing. If Jeremy Grant's not there,
well, I'm saying long term though. Like in terms of like what their roster construction is. Like, could you have like Shaden become like a supercharged 6-man kind of vibe? Or like maybe it's Scoot that's a supercharged 6-man, like depending on how that development goes.
You're talking about getting one of these guys into the starting lineup long term. I think. Who?
Like is Kamara and Denny just your 3-4 of the future? Is there a world where because Denny is so good as a ball handler that you can play him as like your 3 with like Kamara quote unquote at the 2? And then you have a point guard, and then you have Ace at the 4.
I mean, I think it's possible because like that comes down to Tamani taking those matchups, which I think he probably can. Floor spacing could end up being a real issue there, especially, you know, depending on how Scoot continues to develop. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Like which one makes it easier to get into the starting lineup?
Yeah, I think they take Ace is where I'm at.
Sure.
Ace feels more like what they've built around recently to me than VJ. Chicago at 11. So like I prefer VJ for them because I want the defense and I think that's what they need, but also they have a million guards and like, you know, you have to figure out what to do with Kobe White. You have to figure out what to do with Giddey. Like, can you play all 3 of those guys together? It's an issue. Maybe Ace like is easier to fit in team wise there.
I like VJ there because I think he fits exactly. You mentioned the defense, and then I talked earlier about the way they play in terms of pace, and I think VJ is going to be super successful playing at the top 3 pace in the NBA.
I think that's probably right. Yeah. Man, they're just small though if you take VJ is your core. I guess Giddey's 6'8 though, 6'9, that helps.
I mean, you could start a lineup of Kobe, VJ, Giddey, and then modest at the 4 is like a modest thing, not as much, you know what I mean? Like we talked about the being able to hold up physically there, but that trio, I think, isn't inherently an issue because of Giddey's size as your primary guy.
Yeah. Okay. These last few we can just like spend precious few minutes on because they won't have much of a chance. Dallas. I mean, so like, is there a chance that they're a team that could like look elsewhere? I mean, honestly, they're going to move. If they get 3, they're probably moving it and trying to like build for the current, right?
Yeah, like yes, because I don't think you can take Kasparis or Fears at 3, right? I mean that they would be the team to like really disrupt this, correct? Like, don't you think if there's a team we've talked about so far to completely disrupt who goes at 3, wouldn't them quote unquote reaching or going after a primary initiator be the team to do it?
I don't even know about like a primary there, but almost maybe I think they would trade out. Like I think that if they get 3, they're going to look at like trying to go get like a current player.
Agreed 100%. I'm just saying if they were forced to make the pick, I wonder if they're the one team that maybe could zag when in this scenario. I'm with you. I think if they bump in the lottery, they make the move to go get some on-ball creation.
Yeah, like I think that's the choice for them, like pretty clearly. Like if you're them, I'm like trying to find the team that works. Like, is there a team that they would do this with? It probably has to be a bit of a bigger person that can play with Kyrie when Kyrie gets back as well. But could it be, man, it's hard. I'm like trying to find the player. I don't know if I have the player.
Trade him for Josh Giddey.
I mean, that'd be funny. That'd be very, very funny, but it's not going to take 3 to do that. And I think Chicago is just going to re-sign him.
Yeah.
I mean, like, could Toronto like move one of these guys for that pick?
Like move IQ for him? how do you make the money work with that though?
I mean, Dallas has money. Like Dallas has like a bunch of those like random mid-sized contracts if they want. But like IQ's not enough for 3 given that contract. So like, no, that doesn't work. Yeah, I don't know who this. I mean, look, like I'm sure they would try for like the team here that they would try for is Devin Booker or Kevin Durant. Like they would try to get one of the guys from Phoenix, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know if like Phoenix would then have to move 3 somewhere else because Phoenix is going to try and go get a star. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, Dallas would disrupt this. I think Dallas would move this pick, though. I feel good about that. Houston, if they were to get number 3, another team that, like, we really just can't think about moving up because goodness. What do I think they would do? Probably Ace or Dylan or VJ. I think they probably take VJ just because like he ticks boxes for what Ime really likes. To be honest,
yeah,
like he just like ticks a lot of boxes for them. Ime would be able to use him in a lot of different ways. I think again they would probably consider moving this pick or like some of their young guys for a star.
Yep.
And then finally, Sacramento has this. Atlanta has it if it's outside of this pick, but I think this would be inside the range where Sacramento would have it, and they would keep this pick. Sacramento, I think, probably takes VJ. Or no,
I was thinking Ace just because
they might take Ace. Yeah.
I mean, you have Monk, you have Levine, you have Keon Ellis, you just drafted Devin Carter. Like, depending on how you feel about those guys, it seems like a team that could use a little bit more wing stuff.
But you also already have like a significant number of these mid-range mavens. Like, Levine is comfortable there. DeMar is there. Keegan Murray is another guy there. Like, do you take Ace and like throw him into that mix? Maybe, because like they'd have a lot of creativity. You might have convinced me. This might be an Ace team. Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. I did not anticipate as many Ace teams for having VJ. To be clear, I have them in the same tier, but by having VJ a spot higher, I thought I would answer VJ more than what I ended up answering VJ.
I think that's right too. I'm a little bit surprised with how many Ace answers we had.
Yeah.
Here. Because again, like I also have VJ a little bit higher than Ace. I don't love like either of these prospects, to be clear. Like, I don't think either of them will be like, I will have both Cooper and Dylan as like tier 1 prospects. I think Dylan will be close. Dylan will be like on the border of tier 1 and tier 2. But then like, I'm not going to have either of these guys in tier 2. Like I will have both of them as like tier 3 guys.
Yep. That's
probably
where, I mean, I have Cooper in a tier on his own. We've talked about this ad nauseum that every team in the league would take him number 1. We already did this with Dylan. I have Dylan in a tier by himself as the second best prospect. And then I have these 2 guys before another tier break before the next group of guys, which makes things at 5 get really interesting as well. But like it's a solid tier break between Dylan and these 2 for me, which is why he would be number 2 pick as we talked about for all these teams.
I think I have this as a tier break. I'm like honestly trying to decide if I have these guys as even like tier 3-ish guys for me.
Sure. And group them into that next group of guys anyway. Even if they're at the top for sure, they're in a tier with these other guys.
Yeah. Like honestly, like I think I'm just like a little bit lower on these guys than what some people are. And that's kind of where I sit on it, but I also understand people if they're higher on it. You know what I mean? If they think Ace has like some basketball ability, to be able to create shots and be a 20 point per game scorer. Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, it is interesting. It's very interesting. VJ is going to go somewhere in the top 5 or 6. Like I feel good about that. Ace will go somewhere in the top 5 or 6. You could sell me on one of these guys. Like we didn't talk about this possibility of like Derek Queen, Trey Johnson, Khan, like guys like that going ahead. There's a world where that happens.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Listen, I will admit, like, I've come around more and more on Trey and the ability to knock down shots at his size. I've come around on Derek Queen, at least offensively. Like, I was not appreciating his game enough on the offensive end. And so I've definitely come around on those guys more, to where, again, whenever I go back through all of these guys and watch specific things and all of that, it very well could be that I don't know if any of them will pass these two, but they could end up in the same tier where it's like, really this guy could use a Derek Queen level player, where maybe I end up saying, for one or two teams, he actually could be the guy, or Trey's floor spacing or something like that. So it is, it's still interesting. We got a lot of time and a lot of film to watch still, and intel and all of that stuff that's going to come in yet.